Guys, he has done it again. One of the best martial art YouTubers out here, a guy who I agree with 99% of the time, has made another video so extreme and with so little nuance that I am forced to make a counterclaim video. Gabriel Varga has made another video talking about which techniques don't work and why you shouldn't train them. And the last time he made a video like this, it was based around which karate moves don't work in a kickboxing perspective. And when I made my, I guess you could say, rebuttal against that video, I wasn't actually disagreeing with him almost at all from a kickboxing perspective. What he was saying was super valid. What I was mostly doing was explaining the context in which those moves were supposed to be used and where they could actually be put into effect. But when it came to kickboxing and sports martial arts, by and large, he was accurate, which I said in the video. But this time, I am actually disagreeing with him from a sports context, which is like an absolutely insane thing to think about, but I'm coming from the perspective, not just from my personal experience. I understand Gabriel Varga has way more experience than me, but the evidence and the reality of the techniques do not agree with him almost at all. So in this video, we're going to talk about what Gabriel Varga was saying and why, for the most part, his arguments were like really, really bad, and why I almost totally disagree on pretty much everything he said.
Stop wasting your valuable time at the gym using these techniques which just don't work. Number one, a back fist. Back fist is still taught, and many people go, oh yeah, this is a very viable technique and I can create so much power on a back fist. And yes, absolutely you can, but not as much as a hook. Not as much as coming straight down the center with your cross.
Okay, so let's start off with the back fist. Gabriel Varga says you should throw away the back fist because it doesn't have knockout power the way a cross or hook has knockout power. That is a false argument. It's sort of like what you would call a straw man argument. No one, or almost no one, I've never heard an instructor teaching that you're going to knock somebody out with a normal back fist. A back fist is the equivalent of a kung fu-ish style jab. The back fist is meant to be used as a jab-like technique. You can use it to just get in their face, cause distractions, blind the eye. Say you're in a position where you're playing hand trapping. You pull a hand back, you jab him in the, you hit him with a back fist in the face, and then you finish it off with a cross. Talking about back fists not working because they aren't used to knock people out is like saying we should throw away a jab because you're not likely to knock somebody out with a jab. You are purposefully misrepresenting how the technique is taught in most situations. My old coach, who fights for one championship, uses back fists all the time, but he uses them properly, like a jab or distraction technique, which is, it's also crazy because a back fist is a flicker jab when you adjust it for the rules of boxing. Okay, in boxing, especially currently, you cannot hit with this part of the fist. You have to hit with the knuckle, right? So, depending on the version of back fist we're talking about, yes, some back fists will tell you to aim here, but the majority of back fists that I've actually learned in my multiple different styles of martial arts that I've trained in, you do hit with the knuckle. You might go that way. You might go that way, but you're still hitting the knuckle. And if I'm here in a Philly show and I'm whipping out that back fist, that's just a flicker jab. In Gabriel's previous video, he also talked about the back fist not working, and I used a video of Tim Witherspoon, a two-time heavyweight world champion and sparring partner of Muhammad Ali, who explained that the flicker jab is an offshoot of the back fist. This is coming from a world champion boxer, not just me, not just this YouTuber here, but a world champion boxer. And Witherspoon has actually seen that video and commented on it. He agrees with the statement. Okay, so the idea that a back fist doesn't work when it's used all the time in kickboxing and in boxing, and again, by some Muay Thai fighters, including ones in one championship, like my old coach Eddie, then it obviously works. And to tell people not to train it because it doesn't knock people out when it's not supposed to, when it's designed to be used as a jab type technique, is crazy. And what I also find a little annoying is in his own video, he also sort of explains enough about how to properly use the technique that I feel like he knows that he's not being genuine in why he thinks he should throw it away.
And the only way I could see using a back fist, if you're doing some sort of little clever setup where like touch, 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 boom, boom, and you're using it as a follow-up, sure, that might work.
So right there, he actually explains how you're supposed to use a back fist within, a combo of techniques to set something else up. That's how it's supposed to be used. And that's how we should have explained the technique, not telling people to just throw it away and stop training it. And that is going to be my consistent issue with this video and he'll set up a reasoning about why the technique doesn't work by taking the technique sort of out of its proper context and use this almost false argument about why you shouldn't be using the technique at all. And another thing that he'll do is he's a teacher, right? He should understand that when you're teaching techniques, you start with a basic version and you evolve from there. And in this video, he talks about how a spinning back fist is actually very effective. And the next technique he hates on is actually a hook kick. He says how hook kicks don't work, but a spinning hook kick is valid.
Now, absolutely, you can come around with a spinning back fist, but that has so much more power because we've rotated into it. We have all of that motion and then the extension on the end. So absolutely train your spinning back fist. The next technique is a hook kick. Now, once again, same argument. Absolutely throw your spinning hook kicks. There is so much power on those. Unless you're spinning on it, I don't see the purpose.
Now, my problem with this is Gabriel is a teacher. He has taught many, many people martial arts, and he's a very good teacher from what I understand. And so he should have a full understanding that you do not start teaching a technique. You don't start with the spinning version of any technique. You don't start with the advanced. You start with the basic. If you believe a spinning back fist or a spinning hook kick is a valuable technique, you should teach the non-spinning version first. That in and of itself is a reason to not throw the technique away. I am worried because he is so influential that you're going to have all these young martial artists refuse to learn the foundations of how that technique's supposed to work. And then when they start throwing the spinning versions, especially the spinning hook kick, they're missing fine details to actually make the kick effective. And that is why it is so dangerous to tell people to throw away a technique without putting it in its proper context. But now that we're on the hook kick, let's go into my issues with this comment on why to throw away the hook kick outside of just, the elements of why it's useful for teaching.
If we land with the heel, we're going to have to connect very clean, right to the temple or right to the jaw. KO, maybe you could actually damage somebody's jaw. You could break it, I'm sure. But when we compare the power of a hook kick to that of a round kick, oh man, they're not even close. And just like a spinning back fist, more often than not, you're going to have to throw these techniques from your side stance, which in my experience and opinion is a far more compromised stance in terms of defense than being here. The karate guys, they use it very well because they back up very fast. But if they get caught at that position where the cage is there or they're unable to back up fast enough and they end up here and having to block, oh man, that's bad.
I train with many different people of many different rule sets, and I'm still talking full contact, but I'm talking, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, karate combat, Kyokushin. You have many different styles of full contact fighting. And when you go into a lot of fight gyms, a lot of the kickboxers, Muay Thai fighters, the MMA guys, even if you say you're doing something like karate combat, they'll be training in the same room, right? And learning each other's techniques. So when you are judging these techniques and saying throw it away or not throw it away, you want to look at all the rule sets that it could possibly be used for. Gabriel Varga brings up that when you throw the hook kick, you have to be in the kind of karate side stance and how that's not a great stance for kickboxing. And while I don't think it's actually that hard to just, throw a combo to hide your stance change and then throw the hook kick, it also isn't pointing out that this stance is actually very useful and seen widely in MMA. From obvious guys like Stephen Thompson, MVP, Raymond Daniels when he fought over there, to Conor McGregor using the karate side stance on a regular basis. On top of a personal friend and training partner of mine, who I'm going to use a lot in this example, Bobby Serrano, who fought for Bellator undefeated until Bellator was sold to the PFL, and now he's fighting for his last fight was at Fight Night at the Tech, right? And so this guy is a high-level MMA fighter who fights primarily in that side stance. And through all of my time sparring with him, I can tell you the way the hook kick is designed to be used is not primarily as a knockout shot. A hook kick, when used by a high-level karate practitioner, is often used as a distraction shot. So for example, you talk about a hook kick coming in, you just raise your arm to like block the hook kick and it doesn't have a lot of power and it's no problem. That's sort of the point of a basic hook kick. It's to get the opponent to move their arm up to block it. And if you see these karate guys with their famous insane leg control, they'll put their foot up in the air and then change the direction like mid-air. Like it's all over, like they can write notes with their feet in the air, right? And one thing that Bobby can do is he can kick you with a side kick, put his foot up like it's about to be an axe kick to threaten the side of your face. You go out to block it, next thing you know, his foot comes back and hits you in the side. It's designed to make you try to block it, to be used within fakes and feints at the high level. And these are guys who, again, are MMA guys. Bobby, for example, because I'm using him, he's a personal training partner, is such a phenomenal wrestler on the ground that even if I was able to knock him down with it or take him down, he's still gonna kill me. Okay, and that's sort of the point. You have to look at the totality of the circumstances and where you might use these techniques. If you're trying to use a normal hook kick without the spin to knock someone out, for the most part, that's not the way you use the hook kick. It's used, yeah, you can tap their eye, maybe give them a black eye with it if you hit them in the eye really hard, and maybe blind some vision. That's one way to use it. But also, you just want to make them reach to redirect. It is a high-level technique for high-level karate practitioners, and it does work. Now, is it hard? Absolutely. Could Gabriel Varga talked about how this is a difficult technique to use and that it requires a lot of training, and maybe from his perspective, it's not worth the time it would take for you to master the technique to use it at that kind of a high level? That's a personal opinion, and an opinion that many people would probably agree with. It is a hard technique. It takes a very, very highly skilled person to use it. He mentions earlier in the video how, yes, you can find some guys who can use this stuff like MVP, or as you say, like a Raymond Daniels or whatever. If you listen to Raymond Daniels or Michael Venom Page talk in interviews about how they're able to land these fantastic techniques, they will tell you it's because they rep these techniques the way the rest of us rep a 1-2 or jab rear kick. They rep them to the point where it flows as easy and as fluidly as the basics flow. And if you have a young fighter who has the time and ability to possibly get a technique like that up to that level, why take away their ability to have something special that can and has been proven to work? I just don't agree with that at my core. Again, from a teaching perspective, if you can admit that a spinning hook kick can work, why are you telling people not to learn the basic version that you need to learn before the spinning hook kick?
Next technique, which I just don't get. I don't get it whatsoever. I can't even come up with a good argument why you would ever use this, and that is a crescent kick, whether it's the inside or the outside. And the reason I can't think of a good reason to use this is we're coming through like so. It's not that unsimilar to a round kick, except this motion at the end of a round kick is so much more powerful than this, and this initial motion is so much more powerful than this. So to me, you're throwing essentially the weakest possible technique that is kind of similar to a round kick, just so much more mediocre. Now again, that's not to say that somebody in the world hasn't come along and thrown some kind of bang technique that actually does work very well, but once again, pick a better technique to put your effort in on.
Now, Gabriel pointed out that he just didn't understand why anyone would use a crescent kick. And the crescent kick, I'm gonna tell you right now, is not my personal favorite technique. All right, I don't train the crescent kick that often. However, I have many friends who train Kyokushin who do, throw that crescent kick on a regular basis. I also know some guys who fight MMA who will throw that crescent kick. And the main reason they'll kind of point it out as I ask them about it is that the crescent kick is good because of the angles in which you're able to throw the technique. If you have the right footwork, you can then place yourself in a position where your opponent is not prepared for that kick. And so when you throw it and it lands, it's just something that they're not expecting. And again, we have to also, I think, look a lot at the differences in the types of combat sports. In kickboxing, a lot of guys are going to have their hands super high up the whole time, no matter what. But if you look at other combat sports, such as MMA, such as Kyokushin, such as even karate combat, you're going to have guys who don't have their hands up as much because of their training, preparing for the threats of the takedown or the increased level of distance between fighters. And so when that is the case, it gives you a higher opportunity to land this weird kick because their hands are often going to be in different positions. Now, throughout this video, we've talked a lot about context and different rule sets. And one of the techniques that Gabriel Varga points out as well is the ridge hand.
And the ridge hand, don't get me wrong, can absolutely generate lots of power. It certainly can, right? To say that I can't generate loads of power would be kind of naive. But number one, I don't like the fact that if we do land in this area against somebody's head, it's going to be very damaging. I feel like that's going to damage my thumb potentially quite bad. So I have to be very particular about landing to the neck. And number two, why not just throw a hook, right? They're such similar motions. It's just really the striking surface that is the big difference. And also, in terms of distance, the hook gives us so much more versatility. I can throw it from here, I can throw it here, I can throw it way out here.
Now, when it comes to the ridge hand, this is a technique that Gabriel and I pretty much agree on. He talked about it in his last video as well, and I really had nothing to say. In almost every situation, an overhand is a more solid technique. But then someone pointed out to me that I was also missing context and also some deeper understanding of the technique. One thing being that the ridge hand doesn't have to land here. This is what Gabriel's talking about, is the ridge hand landing on this part of your hand, and it is one of the most common ways in which it is taught. And in that situation, when you're going over, you're hitting, even if you're tucking your thumb, it's dangerous of it getting hit. And so a lot of people might prefer to land with a closed fist, right? But many people actually view the ridge hand as anything that lands within this entire section, including the wrist and the upper part of your forearm. Now, if you're adding this part of your arm to the surface where you can land that ridge hand and sort of put their neck here instead of here, that changes the game. Specifically in a situation where you're not wearing gloves. You have gloves to protect your hands, all good, doesn't matter. But if you are in a self-defense situation, or say one of the old pancrase fights where you don't have gloves on, all of a sudden bashing them with the forearm is a much safer technique when it comes to protecting your hands from damage. And so this is another one of those situations where it's important to understand the context of the move. When it comes to current and modern sports, where we're pretty much always having gloves on, I think I agree with Gabriel pretty much 100%. However, again, I don't like the term throw the technique away or totally get rid of the technique, because there is a valid situation where you use it in self-defense when you're landing with this, upper part of your forearm here. Very valid. And so that would be my issue again with the statements of throw this technique away, don't use it. There's always context.
Last one that I want to touch on is an axe kick. Yes, of course, you could find somebody who's landed it But look, in my experience, I've seen my brother bring his heel on top of people's heads. I've heard the clunk when it lands. I've seen people walk right through it. It's so easy to defend. If somebody throws it, what do? You back up. If you can't back up, you push forward. As you push forward, you just get your arm in the way, and then all of a sudden, instead of landing with your heel, you're landing here, and the person can just push you over so easy.
Gabriel hates on the axe kick a lot, and obviously, Andy Hugh would disagree. Okay, there's been phenomenal high level kickboxers and Kyokushin fighters that have used the axe kick to great effect. And again, I think this is an issue of, for one, misunderstanding parts of how to use the axe kick. For one, he is talking about landing the axe kick on the top of someone's skull. That's not where, at least that's not how I learned to land the axe kick. The axe kick is meant to be landed on the nose, on the eye socket, on the collarbone, or diagonally at the jaw. You don't land the axe kick on someone's forehead. It's too hard, right? So when you look at how Gabriel believes you should be using the axe kick, I actually think he was taught the axe kick somewhat incorrectly. This is not, I'm not trying to hate. I understand if we're talking about most martial art techniques, he is a better athlete than I am. I'm not trying to come at this like, oh, Gabriel's an idiot. I just want to really point that out. But I do think when it comes to the axe kick, he has some foundational issues in how he understands it. I even went back and looked at a video where Gabriel is trying to teach the axe kick, or how he would use the axe kick, and he keeps talking about the forehead, which I've learned the axe kick from 4 different instructors, and they all have told me that's not where you're supposed to land it. So I just think there's maybe a difference in how he learned that technique. The axe kick, when landing on the collarbone, can break the collarbone. When landing on the chin, you need less to rock that jaw, okay, to get a knockout than hitting the hardest part of the body. When it's aimed for the nose or for the eye socket, it's not even designed to be a knockout shot. It's designed to break the nose, cause trouble breathing, make the eyes swell up, generate a cut. If you are going for right here, you try to generate a cut or something. If you're landing with the heel, to bleed in the eye the same way you could use an elbow. It's about understanding how the axe kick is properly applied. And again, understanding that there's multiple fight styles. Again, you know, you could be a Kyokushin fighter or a MMA fighter where the hands are lower, right? He talks about defending the axe kick by just raising your hand up. Yes, it's true. Axe kick, you just raise your hand up, come in, hit the bottom part of the leg, and you know that could be a dangerous situation. But the axe kick should also not be thrown blind. It's supposed to be thrown within a combo, which he actually talks about.
Essentially, the only time this technique really works well is if you light somebody up, you're hitting them, they go to shell, they're like this, and you can just, boom, bring it right up to the top of their head, or maybe even closer to the back of the head on the top, or right behind. Like that one's gonna work.
This is another one of those situations where I think Gabriel actually somewhat understands how to properly make the technique work, but he still just doesn't like it. And I think that really comes down to the fact that he is thinking that the target for the axe kick is the top of the head, when most instructors, at least in my experience, don't tell you that. The target of the axe kick is the collarbone, the chin, the eye socket, or the nose. Never here. Okay? Or if in his situation, you know, you get their head to come down, you can hit him in the back of the head. That I guess could work too if that's legal in your rule set. Okay? So again, understanding the context. Also, in a situation like an MMA fight where the hands might be lower, and also where you might be better at jiu-jitsu than your opponent if you do get taken down, then there's reasons in which the axe kick can be useful for you. And I think it's important to always recognize those parts of context. On top of that, I think it's important to point out karate and martial arts in general, the evolution of sports and martial arts. And I bring up karate in particular, not just because these are all techniques you can find in karate, but also because of the current Japanese fighters coming into one championship that are making waves for their different and creative striking techniques. That even Gabriel has started making videos on how insane some of these techniques are that they're using, the way they're using their calf kicks and their toe kicks and their targets, and how different it is. But what people who follow traditional combat sports will tell you is that nothing that the Japanese fighters are really doing right now is that new. Nothing is that amazing. It's just coming from other traditional arts that have been disrespected for so long that these techniques were seen as being not viable. But now that the Japanese are showing that it's viable and then doing it on the bigger stage, all of a sudden these older not even older, but these more traditional techniques from these traditional martial arts are getting the credit that they deserve because they're finally being proven on the big screen. And so my issue again with a lot of Gabriel's video is this is the kind of video that somebody would have made about the techniques that Yuki Yoza or Takeru use on a regular basis a couple years ago. About how, oh, these techniques don't work, until they're out here now doing them on the big stage, and now people understand they do work. The amount of old videos about why you should never throw a toe kick, but now people are talking about the beauties of how a toe kick can work, is mind-blowing. I just think it's dangerous to discourage these young kids who could be the next high-level masters of these techniques and dissuade them from taking the time to develop that mastery. And I just think as a YouTuber, when you have an audience that's so big, it's important to remember that you're talking to, martial artists of all ages, of all groups, who have the time to take these techniques to that next level and to encourage them to move forward instead of throwing these techniques away. Because that's how you end up in the situation like I mentioned before right now with these Japanese kickboxers doing a bunch of techniques that traditional martial artists have been using for years, but we had told so many people to throw away, right? And so, again, I just want to say, for the most part, I like 99% of what Gabriel Varga does. This is not an overall Gabriel Varga is bad video. I like most of his stuff. It's just, I really dislike when he tells people to throw away martial art techniques without explaining the context behind them. And in this situation, almost getting a lot of the context wrong. So that's what I got to say. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we will see you next time. Peace.